Hello, everybody. Hope all of you guys are doing well. So it says that we're live, so I'm pretty sure that we're live. And so I'm just going to take a moment, like I always do, to make this public so all of you guys can share out. By how you can share out is that you see us live, you can click on the share button and then publicly post it on your pages or profiles. So it can be on your timeline, your friends, frenemies, enemies, family, can everybody see it? Okay. And if you'd want to listen to it right now and do that later, so what you can do for that is to share it out after we're done going live. So it's basically replaying on your page and you can start a watch party so it seems as if we're live. Okay, so that is that. So I'm sorry I'm a bit distracted because I'm trying to make it public so people that are not my friends can see it. And yeah, it's public, finally public. So I'm finally present in the moment and I am all with you guys. Thank you so much, people, for tuning in. It is awesome. And today we have Vladislav, if I am not, pronouncing it wrong.
Wonderfully correct.
Oh, amazing. I mean, I know the feeling, how it feels for, anybody to pronounce your name correct, because my name, everybody has their own pronunciation for it.
You
So,
did better than 80% of my colleagues when they did that for the first time did, so you should be proud of yourself.
oh, that I am. Yeah. So let's hear your introduction, and then I think we can kickstart this interview with a bam.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, before I introduce myself, I want to thank you for this interesting challenge because for me, such a format of an interview is a rare occurrence, and for me, it's only a pleasure to support such young active talents in Global South like you. When it comes to me, well, for the audience, I will introduce myself the following way. My name is Vladislav Kaim, but you can just call me by my shortened first name, Vlad. I am coming from a small country in southeastern Europe called Republic of Moldova. Currently, I'm 25 years old and I'm finishing my master's studies in economics at Lund University in Sweden. And from July 2020, I am serving as a member of inaugural United Nations Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change. My journey in what is broadly defined as field of sustainability and climate action is already having a track record of continuous 6.5 years of work in multiple countries, in Russia, where I did my bachelor's, in Moldova, and in Sweden, where I lived from 2018, as well as internationally, particularly through the work in youth constituencies to the UNFCCC, which is known as YOUNGO, and the UN Major Group on Children and Youth. My path as a youngster in sustainability and climate action, it started ever so timidly when I think I was barely turned 16. And it was related to some advocacy and storytelling work regarding the situation in with one of the two most important rivers in Moldova, the Dniester River. And from there, 3 years after, when I left for my bachelor's, I started together with my colleagues back in Moscow a non-profit organization called SDG International Youth Forum, which at the time was still working with MDGs. SDGs were still not in place. So yeah, I'm that old. And we basically focused our efforts on kickstarting a student movement that would be focused on both practical and awareness aspects of sustainable development, which was not present at the time. And after we managed to do that, I had some stint in as a researcher, after which I returned to more focused advocacy work on SDGs 8, 7, and 13, and helped a lot to organize the UN Youth Climate Summit that was in 2019. And then eventually it led me to the position I'm in right now.
That is so amazing. What a journey. So I think we should start from like the beginning of the things. It's not saying that you're
Mhm.
old.
Yeah.
Definitely older than me. I'm 13, so what do you expect, guys? Now tell me, where were you born and how were your like early years in the world?
I was born in the city of Chisinau, that is the capital of the Republic of Moldova, in 1995. The middle of the 90s were not the funniest time to be born in, because those were just a few years after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, which sort of triggered a lot of hardship related to what happens, when a big united economic system collapses. So it was for a family who was middle class before, that was a pretty rough ride. But overall, I think that I had, like, even with the material conditions that were in place, I have benefited from the best, love, care, and upbringing possible. Always had books around me. Always had the opportunities to enrich myself in terms of my knowledge and explore what I could, thanks to the books mostly, because that was the most important way to travel, especially in the context when in your childhood you haven't had any semblance of internet like you do today, or stuff like that. So I guess that's kind of the highlights of my childhood that way. I was mostly brought up by my grandmother, who unfortunately passed away last May due to COVID. But it's also, I owe a lot, obviously, to my parents, who had to work a lot in order to sustain even one child in the 90s, which, again, like, having a child in the 90s was a very daredevilish act in the context I was growing up in.
Yeah, I see. And I feel like your childhood or your early childhood has a lot of impact. I mean, I'm still a child, but my very early childhood has like the biggest of impact on me at who I am right now. So how do you feel like your childhood has impacted you as a person and how it has impacted what you work on right now?
I think my early childhood influenced me decisively in a way that allowed me to focus on what I call working with ideas. Because work in sustainability and with climate action, it's as much about concrete on the ground things that we can do, but also it's about concepts and ideas about imagining the unimaginable improvements to the state of the planet that we inevitably need to amplify and apply somehow. And sort of the upbringing that I had, the interactions with books that I had, the way that my interactions were shaped with the outer world, helped me sort of prepare my foundations, my intellectual basis, in a sense, I would say, to work exactly in that regard. But also at the same time, they helped me to always ground my work with ideas in the reality. Because unfortunately, what we can see with some colleagues in the field, that unfortunately there are sometimes ideas that are good, that are worth pursuing, but they may be disconnected with from the realities of the world that we are in right now. And I think that my upbringing helps me to avoid this fallacy ever so much.
Yeah, that is I feel like very amazing as to how a positive impact it has made on who you are right now. Now, tell me, I mean, you started very young. I mean, 16 is a very young age to start, engaging in, such activities that you are even right now. So, how did that begin? Talk me through that.
Well, that began mostly because at that time I've already had enough knowledge to understand the particular local context, and how the development in the Dniester River basin are threatening not just the biodiversity of the ecosystem per se, but also the predicament of us humans who are living in the Republic of Moldova. chiefly because the Dniester River supplies 80% of the water that we consume in the capital city where I was born. I have received a lot of encouragement and guidance to pursue this track by my chemistry teacher. It's basically her and her colleague who I think she still is at the head of one of the most powerful grassroots young organizations in Moldova that encouraged me to get involved. And it began with a competition that was related to storytelling, broadly defined, about the situation of the River Dniester, where I wrote a sort of mix of a short story with a fairy tale that won the first prize, and that's sort of how it started. But then when I graduated from high school, I already started changing my track to a more leveled up engagement already in Moscow. But the lessons that I took from the very first moments of work being still back home significantly helped me. And as I said, the encouragement of mentors that are with you, it helps a lot. It can make a lot of difference. So oftentimes it's also about having people who can mentor you for your own good and can actually empower you, which does not happen always. Not everyone has that luck.
Yeah. And now you talked about how important it is to have like role models and, people that are your mentors and that you're influenced by. But do you feel right now, I see a lot of young people around me, and I feel like we could use some more positive influence over the young people right now. So what do you have to say on that?
I absolutely agree with that. And to add to that, I think that it's extremely important also that these mentorship links, they would be not only between your generations and your generation and like generation of what is known in the West as boomers, but it's also between our generation and my generation. And the reason I'm saying that is because in the climate movement, what we have seen persistently throughout the years is when one generation of leadership and activists steps down because they move on with their lives one way or another, and another comes in. There isn't a proper handover of knowledge and best practices, and it often happens that as if new generation is basically starting from the same point. It can even be seen in when you see movements like Fridays for Future, for instance, and the advent of Greta Thunberg. If you dig a little back in the timeline to the 1992, when the international climate efforts have started at the Rio summit, there was also a young girl who passionately addressed the conference basically with the same message as Greta. Her name was Severin Suzuki. And that's sort of an example of how this mechanism of passing the relevant knowledge between generations that are chronologically immediate neighbors between each other is broken. And that's why I think it is extremely important that more and more people of my generation could be effective and efficient mentors for people of your generation.
Yeah, that is true. And I think one thing, it is like generations are sort of speeding up right now. That is, I mean, I have a younger brother. He's like 8 years younger than me, but I feel like we're like a generation. He's like a generation ahead because he grew up with YouTube being around and being very, Instagram and Facebook being very accessible. I wouldn't say at my time it wasn't around, but it wasn't a hype that it is right now. And I feel like that brings me to my next question as well. And I feel like just the hype of Instagram and Facebook and the use of social media for activism, especially youth climate activism, it has changed so many things. Now advocating for the climate and talking about sustainability on Instagram, it is the coolest thing ever. I mean, advocating for leatherback turtles is cool now. So I feel like just how it is a trend now to talk about the current climate issues. It has really changed to at least what I see, what activism is. Has that changed youth activism for you and for the organization that you're working with, the UN?
Well, for me, I wouldn't say it actually has changed that much because my work is more focused as much on sort of the outward, say, communication, but also primarily communication, say, work within the UN system to bring multiple stakeholders that are in that system, say states, secretariat, be it private businesses, and so on, to bring around certain solutions that take time and a lot of back and forth to prepare and then to gradually roll out. And their different logic of communication works. But when it comes to public promotion, outward promotion and communication techniques, I'm more of a shy person in that regard, and I am mostly sticking to Twitter and Facebook. And also, like, by virtue of my upbringing, I'm always struggling with this type of communication, because to me it's like every time filtering it through my own filter in my brain, like, will it be perceived as too much bragging or everything? So I also hesitate a lot over that. But when it comes to the evolving instruments, like, say, Instagram and TikTok, I should be honest, I am not quite in the loop on that. But I appreciate them in their own right, because it is an enormous amplifier, an amplifier of great influence that can sway the minds of people from your generation to get them involved in the climate action. The only probably sort of notices of caution that I would leave to you in that regard is, first of all, to make sure that this conversation is much as about breadth as about depth as well. So that, because Instagram and TikTok, obviously they are good about, like, immediate awareness, raising the tide of public opinion in one particular way or another. But what we need in climate action and youth engagement in climate action is to remember that this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. And we need people who will be continuously motivated to engage, and most importantly, they will professionalize themselves in one aspect of climate action one way or another. So they would not speak about this just from the platform of having, say, a good followership, but also having that good followership, not just thanks to their presentation skills, although obviously they're important, but also from the point of actual build up competence in one particular field of climate action that they feel the most caring and passionate about.
Yeah. And now tell me, how did your work start with the UN?
My work, it's not, we here have to point out that it's not the work that way as we can perceive it. Basically, all the youth who are involved in those engagement mechanisms do that in a volunteer capacity and in their own time. But basically, my first contact with youth engagement at the UN level was after the ECOSOC Youth Forum in 2019. Where I started in getting engaged with UN Major Group on Children and Youth, mostly at that time on SDG 8, but also on SDG 13. And in July 2019, I was invited to represent the youth constituency to the UNFCCC at an important climate meeting that was chaired by UN Secretary General in Abu Dhabi. And at that meeting, it was decided that there would be help required from youth colleagues that were present there, to help prepare the UN Youth Climate Summit that was held September same year. And we did our job, and we were happy that we provided this event to the people who are our age or even younger. It's mostly been for youth and by youth. And from there, after that, I was mostly engaged with official youth constituency to the UNFCCC, particularly when it comes to all things related to energy and climate finance. And at the same time, was helping my colleagues in UN Major Group on Children and Youth on the issues of migration, which I consider extremely important, being a migrant myself, plus the growing impact of climate change on migration, especially since for your region, it's also extremely important because South Asian subcontinent is especially vulnerable to these processes. And then after this, I have passed the selection procedure to be part of the Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group.
Very nice. I mean, I appreciate all the things that you're doing right now, and I feel that there are a lot of young people that are interested, and yet, the they have the things, and there should be mentors. And I feel like it'd be amazing if there would be more mentors that be ready and would feel that they would, want to work with the youth. And I see a lot of them coming up, and I've interviewed a lot of them actually as well. And with this, I want to say thank you so much, Vladislav, for coming up. It was amazing having you on. It was amazing hearing what you said. I would love if you can share something first. The last question I have to you, sorry, the
Mhm.
last two questions I have to you is that first, tell me if anybody would want to professionally contact you, how can they do so?
Well, they can always contact me by basically mostly by LinkedIn. If it's about professional contact, then absolutely that's the way to go.
Yeah,
The
beautiful.
same way that you did actually. So
That's right.
yeah.
Okay. And secondly, I wanted to ask you for a message for all the young people out there that would want to advocate for the climate and actually work on it, not just tell all people about it, but actually implement what they're saying.
My message would be that these years, 2020 and 2021, have been especially cruel on us young people and on people who were given a lot of their time and commitment to non-profit voluntary work. People in our industry, because they are mostly very passionate and determined, unfortunately they don't have a clear sense of boundaries that they need to put in order to also take care of themselves. That's why I encourage all young people that are involved in climate action plenary on the front lines and any other position is to always take a time from your day to make sure that you properly listen to yourself, to your organism, to your mental health, and readjust immediately and accordingly your priorities of engagement. Because even though that is pretty ironical, but I think climate activists would benefit from listening to that principle that you can hear in an airplane instructions about the oxygen mask. In case of release, put always the oxygen mask on yourself first before helping others. And since a lot of our work is so much linked to helping others, it is extremely important that we ourselves would be on top of our mental and physical health before going out there to help others. And that's why in this particular stressful situation, make sure that you help yourself properly before you continue your great and noble mission out there to help others to fight the effects of climate change.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was an honor having you on. And thank you so much for the beautiful message. I'd also like to say that it's only if you are healthy that can you also help other people, thrive or be healthy again. So yeah, that is
Absolutely.
very important of a message. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Who you did, you can still share out. You can share it and then start a watch party since it's gonna be live on your page or your profile. So yeah, thank you so much. Please stay back, Vlad. And I definitely come back with another amazing person. Thank you so much.